All right, I call this meeting to order. Um, Today we have KBE Chief Performance Officer Karen Dodd and the Cool Council Vice Chair Dr. Jim Flynn are going to provide a council update. So welcome. We're excited to hear about this great work.
Thank you. We're excited to be here. I'm hoping that this is the beginning of that yellow brick road that Patrice spoke about. So we're really excited to give you this update. Things are starting to move very quickly with United We Learn, the council. So we will go full speed ahead here. So on the next slide, you'll see that our membership still consists of about 55 members. That does fluctuate over time. We are not putting a lot of energy into replacing people as they leave at this point, simply because the work is moving so quickly at this point that to get people up to speed onto the council would probably set us back more than be helpful. So instead of bringing more people on, one of our work groups, which we're going to talk about in a moment, is all about communication and bringing voices into the council, as well as sharing things that we're doing from the council. So we feel that by having this communications team, we'll be able to make up for those that do fall off over the next couple of years, because we do still have 2 more years of work to do. We do have Penny Christian is still our chair. Well, she became our chair at our April convening, and Jim Flynn, who is sitting next to me, is now our council vice chair, and I'm very excited to have Jim here with me as we move forward. He's going to actually do a lot of the talking, but I just wanted to get through some of this beginning stuff for you. Some of the things that we did during our April convening were we approved a charter for the council. We did elect Dr. Jim Flynn as our council vice chair. We reviewed a roadmap, and I'm going to go through that with you in just a moment as well. We reviewed design principles, and Dr. Flynn's going to share those with you. I also passed those out, so you'll be able to look at those. I may need to give one to Patrice. And we formed our work groups for the summer. So this is our moonshot. This was in draft when we shared it with the board, not the board, when we shared it with the council in April. It has been edited since then a little bit, and it has on here our moonshot, or our vision, which is to build a prosperous Kentucky. We will launch an accountability system that is meaningful and useful to all learners. Now, we're really at the very beginning of this. Even though the council has been around for 1.5 years now, it's really been about getting, as I said, getting people up to speed. That takes a lot of time. It's been a lot of listening to get people to understand what it is that we're trying to do, and to be able to listen to the members of the council to discern what it is that our goal is going to be. So coming up with this moonshot was a really big deal. Then we have the roadmap here now. So like I said, we're kind of at the beginning here for developing prototypes. We do have 4 prototypes that have been developed. Those are going to go through some very pointed feedback loops. As you can see, we plan to share, engage, and revise those prototypes over the summer. We also plan to have legislative awareness over this summer. So getting in front of those legislators and making them aware of everything that we're doing within the council, and especially around those prototypes, is going to be very important. We'll be testing those prototypes as we move into the fall. And then the council will make an accountability model recommendation to KBE, and then KBE and the council together will make a recommendation to the board as to what we really want that future accountability system to look like. Ultimately finishing that up in the summer of 2026. So that is the vision, like that is the yellow brick road, if you will. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Flynn now.
Okay, well, I'm glad to be here with you all to talk about how to take this vision from aspirational to operational. And as Karen said, that yellow brick road starting to clarify, and the blueprint put to that roadmap in place so that we can continue this path to make this dream a reality for our students. And one of the things that we want you to know is these design principles are there to ensure that quality and effective design occurs at the state level, but also it gives local partners an ability to make sure that these things are good for students and that it's a useful resource for creating these personalized learning programs and experiences, as well as these local community-based accountability systems that are in this work, and making sure those are aligned to the expected benefits to our students first and foremost, but also have the input not only of students and parents, but also employers and other interested community stakeholders. We can't go at this work alone. We have to have our communities with us and supporting us. Ultimately, we always acknowledge that a community gets the schools it wants. And when our communities know what we want together and they have high expectations and are willing to invest their time and resources, we can make amazing things happen for our kids. And so, these design principles will help our communities and taking their aspirations for students to design, creation, and implementation. And so the system, though, at the state and at the local level, we know is always perfectly designed for the results it's getting today. But the system is also a function of the policy landscape within which it operates and exists. And so we want to make sure that the policy landscape is coherent and aligned to this vision as well. So there's lots of work going on to make sure that we make this moonshot a reality. And Karen referred to these design principles, and I'm not going to read them to you, but you can see there's three main themes in those. Prioritizing student experiences and outcomes, because ultimately it is those experiences that our students have that drive their learning, and we want that to be personalized to their talent, skills, and aspirations and for the future, and so they become the best version of themselves. But we got to value that local context and expertise and make that connection to our local communities. We have a state component to education in Kentucky, but the magic is also that partnership with local communities, and so that's a really important piece of this. And then, of course, again, having an approach of continuous improvement within that state policy context so that it supports this kind of work going forward. And so we're really excited to make sure that this vision and moonshot do start entering into that design, creation, and implementation phase, and we're really excited. So next slide, please. We have broken ourselves into 4 work groups to drill down in making this United We Learn vision and moonshot a reality. And so the Cool Council has been working in a work group called Menu of Options, another one in learning with local district support for quality, and engaging communities, communicating with communities. So the work group I'm on, next slide please, is the Menu of Options, and this was a really an amazing experience. I have to give kudos to the KBE team and partners, because we had to kind of step back and say, all right, what are we really going after here? Because really this work is beyond just a menu of options. We want a whole accountability system that makes this vision a reality, and ultimately is meaningful and useful to students first and foremost. And so there's some things that we're working in to make sure that we're assuring accountability that supports deeper learning through vibrant learning experiences, for students first and foremost. And so there's personalization is valued in the system. We're also looking at how the federal and state requirements can be better aligned because that's the kind of part of the system that needs to be stable and not change over time. But at the same time, we know there's times where we have to have a nimbleness and agility, but we're envisioning that to be more maybe in that local component, that local community-based component. So think about the federal and state requirements as a stable component complemented by local community-based accountability component to our system that more closely aligns to the expected benefits to our students, for the employers, and for the communities that our schools serve. And it also brings that agility and nimbleness that we need at times. For example, if a Blue Oval or Amazon lands in your community, right? And so we also want to make sure that there's real-time feedback, there's transparency in it, but it's transparency that's healthy. There's competition can be good, but there can be healthy competition and unhealthy competition. And we want to value healthy competition that inspires collaboration, partnerships, and sharing of best practice so that this transcends our entire Commonwealth to benefit our students. The next work group is learning with local districts. And so this group is working on tools to support districts as they design these systems. And so there's lots of great work going on in pioneer districts across the Commonwealth. And these innovators and pioneers are informing this work. And so this group is looking at what they're doing. They're doing site visits. They're curating, some of the best practices and most promising strategies for making this work a reality. We're looking at tools to make sure that broad stakeholder input and feedback is part of the process. And, we're really approaching this an understanding of the adaptive change and challenge that this work poses to ensure that we're giving those tools to help engage these stakeholders in the design, creation, implementation phases of this work. The next slide, please, is around district supports for quality work group. And so here, looking at what resources are needing. And studying these innovative districts for share-worthy resources and doing an asset audit, so to speak, for gaps in the resources and the landscape for supporting this work. And then finally, engaging and communicating with communities.
I can talk about this one.
You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I'll talk about this one. I'm leading this one.
Pass it off to Karen then. That's right. Oh, this is her. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I started talking about this one in the beginning. So we have been meeting, we've met several times since our April convening, and we're looking at, first of all, the website that's out there for United We Learn. If you go out there now, you'll see that it's been modified quite a bit. We've added in there the roadmap. We're just trying to clean it up, make sure that it's all up to date, and also to add resources out there. So as we move forward, especially with the protocols, once they become public, we want to start getting feedback on those. So we're talking about different questions to ask. During our April convening, we had quotes from all across Kentucky. We did some voice interviews with people. And so around the room, we had posters, and you could click on a QR code and listen to a student talking about their project or a teacher talking about how they set that up, all kinds of things like that. So moving forward, we want to do similar things, but keep up with the pace of the work that's happening within the council. So as districts start looking at these prototypes, what are the kind of questions that we need to get in and start asking? So that's what this group is really focused on. What do we need to still continue to hear about this work as we progress? And what do we need to continue to share with them? And for our members of the council, as they go out and try to collect some of those voices through this rollout, what tools will they need? What questions should they be asking? So we're kind of putting together a toolkit for our members to go out and do some of this interviewing, I guess, still, or,
Engagement.
There you go, engagement with our field. So it's been very exciting. Our next steps are with, KBE staff and expert partners will work on deliverables between the convening. So that is obviously going on. The prototypes are coming from that continued work. Menu of options work group, they are meeting in June. I believe it's June 20th. They'll be looking at those prototypes again, coming up with from some of the initial feedback that they get, they'll be coming up with a new version of those prototypes. And those prototypes are going to be shared with all of you in your August board meeting. One of the things that is most interesting is at the end of our convening, we did have one of our superintendents say that he felt that we should meet over the summer, that this work is really on a roll right now, and we don't want to lose momentum. So I polled the members and asked, who else thinks we need to have a meeting, and almost every hand in the room went up. So we are meeting again July 29th here at the department downstairs for a July 29th convening. And at that time, we will be sharing the prototypes that have been being developed this summer with the members of the council, getting their feedback, finalizing it, and coming out with yet another version of those prototypes. And that will be what will be shared with all of you at the August board meeting. Am I forgetting anything? We also have our regular October meeting. For the July meeting, we would really like to have some board members there. So I think Meredith is going to be sending out an invitation to all of you. I know that we have to be careful about not having a quorum, but we would really, really like to have some board members there. So if you'll pass that on in your review or overview of this meeting, that would be fantastic.
Do you have a date yet, or just
July 29th? Mm-hmm.
And we are continuing to get L3 input.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's it. So, any questions for us?
Going back to your moonshot slide, the summer of 2024, you have legislative awareness. Who is that you're going to be meeting with in that case?
I don't know that anything has been set up yet, but and Meredith, you may know better than I don't. Do you know if anything's been set up yet?
No, so Representative Tipton has been an active member of the council, and so he attends and will be attending on July 29th as well. So he's aware of kind of the long-term plans around the prototypes and feedback gathering efforts. But I know that Brian is setting up meetings, kind of more one-on-one meetings to talk about some of the work that's coming out. I don't know of any scheduled interim joint presentations, but that's something that that Commissioner Kinney has suggested might be prudent to have, not only a cool council update, but an overview of the department and our efforts. So hopefully that will happen sometime in interim session. There's Brian. And Brian says yes. That's the plan.
I just think the impact we had yesterday in seeing these 5th and 8th graders, 2 young ladies, to do their defense was powerful. I spent an hour on the phone with my wife last night describing that experience. And I think if, as early as possible, to get some of these legislators to see with their own eyes what is going on, and doing it through, as frequently as you can to keep them involved, because I keep going back old enough to remember the introduction of Kara, and we lost a lot of legislative support and community support because they didn't understand some of the things that were implemented there. And so I was pleased to see that legislative awareness this summer, and would encourage you to do that as frequently as you can and use the students as much as you can. I like the Voices idea of how they can hear what people are saying about it, because it's a sales job.
Yeah.
It's a real sales job.
And we've had Representative Tipton has been very, very involved in this work. We're hoping to have others come in July as well. So Dr. Flynn's going to try to help us with that.
To your point, Dr. Todd, and I agree with you 100%. We've been having some conversations about maybe some specific actions that we can do, but I agree with you. If they can see those kids in action, that's going to move them. And I've had some preliminary conversations with like Chair Tipton, Chair West, John Ballard, who's the Senate Policy Advisor, about some ideas like this. But we also want to make sure that new Commissioner Fletcher and team, that we coordinate this so that it happens in a very intentional, strategic manner, so that it brings people along the right way. But I think there's openness. If we go back to almost this time of year, I mean, it might have been a year ago today, there was an interim joint committee on education meeting. I gave a presentation that really tried to tee up the KBE team and Chair Young at the time. And so we gave a presentation there. Last November, we had some of these pioneer district superintendents talking about some of their work, especially around local community-based accountability and how it ties into creating those deeper personalized learning experiences and more vibrant learning experiences. And I think the next step is showing them exactly what that looks like and letting them hear from students, from teachers, from employers about the power of this, especially connecting it to that local community piece that's so important in this work. And so I think there's openness. We just have to make sure we don't get out too far in front of ourselves on certain things, and because if we're not clear, it causes more confusion than not.
I'm reminded, I won't take much time with this, but there's a little book called Crossing the Chasm that I've talked about a lot. It's in paperback now, but it's when you're trying to introduce a new product or a new concept, you'll get your early adopters. Tipton, I've heard his name many times. Yes. West, I mean, you got early adopters, but they don't get you across the chasm because they're the ones that are out thinking the rest of them. You got to pick people across the chasm that you can influence and live with them and make them understand it, because they can influence other people in that part of the Gaussian curve. And so I think what you're saying, you got to be prepared for it. It's got to be intentional, but you got to knock down a few other people other than the Tiptons in the West. You got to find a deeper penetration into the mindset of some of these others. But I applaud this plan you've got. It's great.
Thank you. This moonshot slide here. When this all began, and it was a glimmer of hope for where we were headed, I vividly recall the discussion we had saying it's going to be about a 6-year process. And to see this spread out with the dates, I've got chill bumps. I mean, that's there. So thank you for the work that you all have poured into this.
And keep in mind, that's the design.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
I realize we've still got a ways to go, but then 6 years seemed like such a long time into the future. And now seeing this with dates 2025, we're on the brink.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting.
It's good.
Yeah.
It does feel good.
Other questions? How much, how many districts do you think are kind of already connected into the work? Like how much, like way over in far Western Kentucky? Like I just don't have a good concept of how many people are already kind of bought in.
We have, I want to say 18 L3s, does that sound right? Local laboratories of learning, but it really goes beyond that. I know that if Sarah Snipes were here, she would be able to really give you a better idea of what that landscape looks like. At some point, I think I heard 120 something of folks that she's working with on different innovative things. It might even be more than that. So it's pretty widespread. I think everybody We recently did a customer survey and we asked, how familiar are you with United We Learn? Or I can't remember exactly what the question was, but something about United We Learn. And it went up drastically from last year. So we know that the vision is spreading. More people are hearing about it and the work is happening out there. So I think it's going to be a matter of connecting what we mean by United We Learn with what is already happening in those innovative districts, which is more than districts of innovation at this point.
There are some districts that aren't in L3 officially, but that are doing a lot of similar type things. And so how to, kind of support and seed that work in others that are willing to try, I think is part of the next step to get that grounds, swell or, grassroots, momentum that we need, because it can't be, top down. It's got to be top down, ground up, and
Everything in
and
between.
everything in between. But we're continuing to talk about this and to use different partners out there to champion this kind of work. And so there's a lot of different things that are connecting, from the Cool Council, of course, that you all, are hearing from today, but even the Commonwealth Education Continuum has some of this on their radar screen, and there's conversations of connecting it there. Lots of the agencies, like, the agency that I am a part of, we continue to try to put these concepts in front of superintendents and let them better understand it and think about ways to engage in it. And then, of course, we've got to get the policy landscape aligned to really make it go, because if the drivers in that part of the equation aren't aligned to this work, then, people are going to default to what those drivers are, right? And so that's going to be a big piece of this and to that earlier discussion. But I think we're making inroads in important parts of that system as well. So,
Julie?
One of the big things to get this push to moving along is getting the businesses on board. Because if the businesses are supporting the schools, the businesses are also talking to legislators. So that's going to help really spur the momentum on this.
That's a really good point. We've had a hard time keeping business leaders engaged in this work at the Cool Council level. But it is something that our communication work group has really been talking about. How do we get to maybe the chambers of commerce and such so that we can get more involvement from the business leaders?
I think it's a really good point too. And the more that we can figure out how, to your point, to get more districts kind of thinking about, especially on this accountability system piece and how local community-based component fits into it, that's the mechanism that employers can buy into, because then they have a voice at the local level to say, this is what we want, and need from the schools to help us have the best workforce, in our area to meet our needs. And if they have that kind of voice in the process, I think that's the hook, so to speak, to get them to buy into this. And to that earlier conversation, if we can get some of these pioneer districts and communities in front of the legislature to share about this work, but to also show that connection with the employers, I think that could also be a way to amplify it and then get other communities interested and say, oh, we can do that too.
Could you tell us just a little more about what July 29 might look like?
It's really going to be about looking at those prototypes. So it's not going to be, it's a one-day convening as opposed to a two-day, which we've normally had. And we are focused just on the prototype. So it'll be diving deep into there are 4 prototypes, diving deep into each one of them and getting feedback from all of the members on each one of those.
And so you all know the team that's working on that. I just can't say enough good things about them, because this has been a really short time timeline to do this, but they have doubled down and are delivering. So
Yeah, so that's Jennifer Stafford and her team and expert partners working on all of that. They've done a great job.
Thank you. Sounds like we've got wonderful leadership heading up the work, and just excited to see like developing legs, like really moving. So that's exciting. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your work.
So that was really the only item that we had for this group today. So we'll need a motion to adjourn. Thank you. A motion and second.
We go.
Patrice and Joanne, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? All right, we're adjourned. Thank
job.
you.
Good job.
Thank you.